Welcome, listeners, to www.ironradio.org, the website and podcast for all things strength sports and sports nutrition. With your hosts, Lonnie Lowery.
Remember, Phil is like a gnarled old oak tree held together with scar tissue and bone spurs.
Rob Fortney.
And I'm telling you, the pain that I would suffer was beyond excruciating.
And Phil Stevens.
Just do it, Rob. You'll kill all those nerves.
Thanks for listening.
Welcome, Iron Radio listeners. This is Lonnie Lowery. I'm an exercise physiologist, and I'm a nutritionist, and I'm a former competitive bodybuilder.
Yeah, this is Phil Stevens, strength coach. I run Strength Guild, as well as all our athletes. I'm a powerlifter, Highland Games athlete, coach, all around awesome individual.
This is Dr. Mike Nelson, and owner of Extreme Human Performance, faculty member at the Kerrigan Institute for Functional Neurology, instructor at Rocky Mountain University, creator of the Flex Diet, and we don't have water this morning for some odd reason, but none of our neighbors do, so at least I know it's not something that broke in our house.
Is that frozen Minnesota pipes or something? I don't know.
I don't know. That's what I thought. We got up and I'm like, oh man, a pipe broke. This is bad.
Yeah.
And checked with the neighbors who live in a townhouse complex, and none of them have water either, which made me feel actually a lot better because that means maybe it's a city issue somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Just in. City of White Bear Lake, water main break.
Oh, the whole city, the water main broke, I guess.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh, boy.
So that's not going to be fun. Anyway.
Okay. You know what? I'm sitting here drinking some, this is called Devotion or Devotion. This is from the New York Coffee Festival. I'm just drinking this coffee. Good coffee is a winner way to start the day. I'm just saying. I'll probably get more and more animated as we go along because I'm drinking this good stuff.
High caffeine or just one of those kind of fancy highbrow coffees?
No, yeah, it's just highbrow stuff, but I just fresh ground it, and it's just really,
nice.
You can always tell a good coffee. Yeah, this is not gas station coffee. I know we have some listeners who like the utility of gas station coffee, but this is not that, and I'm digging it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
All right, let's start with two questions before we get to our topic of the day. For those of you who want to stick around, and I hope you do, we're going to talk about the post-competition period. How long is it? What do you do during it, right? So as Phil has often talked about, if you're going to peak, there's got to be a valley on either side. So we're going to talk about what you do in that period and try to draw in some time of year issues, like what you do in the post-competition period. It might differ this time of year versus in the middle of the summer, like if you're going to do recreational activities or whatever. So anyway, we'll talk about that post-competition period after the break. All right. Two listener questions. We have more listener mail than we do straight science news this morning. This first one is from Reagan. It's sort of an academic and career question, and she's turning to us, I think, because she's been a listener for a while, and, well, we'll get to this. She says, I am an avid listener of the Iron Radio podcast, which is partly why I'm reaching out to you instead of other professionals. I'm currently a senior at my university's athletic training program, graduating with my certification in the spring. I feel it's necessary to obtain my master's degree. The more I learn, the more I realize I don't know. So already wise, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and rare in the fitness world.
Yeah.
Let's see. I have found my passion in strength and conditioning after completing some research projects on the relationship of training and injury and practicing the theories myself. I see a discrepancy. This is sort of the core of this. I see a discrepancy in the relationship of athletic trainers and strength coaches. Both of these professionals can have a huge impact on injury prevention, but oftentimes it's overlooked. That is prevention. Going forward, I'd like to practice strength conditioning with the mindset of an athletic trainer with the goal of prevention. The faculty at my college is very focused on rehab, much like most institutions across the athletic training programs. It's difficult to find someone with insight into the profession who may be able to help me in the direction to take post-graduation. I'm sorry if this is something you feel you could not be helpful with, or you could, but maybe there's someone you could point me towards. I'm at a serious loss, and I don't know where to turn to further my education. I'm trying to keep this short. I know all too well classes are coming to a close, and it's crunch time for professors as well. Thank you so much for taking your time to read this, Reagan. Well, let me start this with a personal comment. She asked, is it difficult to find someone with insight into the profession? Well, I could tell you it's difficult to find someone who's going to put their money where their mouth is when it comes to prevention. We have a reactive healthcare model, and I don't want to offer too much toughness in the tough love, but you're always going to see salaries. Like I can tell you in Ohio, an average physical therapist might make $75,000 a year. And the strength coaches that I know that graduate from my program, even if they work at big D1 schools, they might make maybe a third of that. Half if they're very lucky. So maybe between 25 and 45. So we put our money into the reactive medicine side, into the rehab side, and I think maybe that's why Reagan is getting a little bit disgruntled, right? Like, I want to stop people from doing this, and she's right in saying that, right? In thinking that, like, an ounce of prevention should be worth a pound of cure. Now, and again, that's salary-wise, but let me say this. Of the strength coaches that I know, that I've helped create or I've just known as a peer, very few of them regret it. In fact, I don't know if any of them regret it. Despite the early mornings and the long hours, they're their own boss. They truly love what they're doing. And to me, that's what an education should do for you, right? So you can stand on your own 2 feet, have an apartment and a car, pay your dues for the first 10 years, right? But do something you love. But Phil, what's your insight on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, and the same thing could be said for nutrition. I mean, it's all about, it's not about what can I do to fix this before it happens. It's all about what pill can I take to fix this and keep doing the crap I'm doing.
Right.
But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The only thing you could potentially do is, hook up with schools in your area. That's one thing that's helped me is, like, it's starting to come out more in athletics, at least. Like, they're starting to give talks on baseball and things like that around here. I don't know if it's nationally, but how, like, strength training is, it's amazing. It's preventing Tommy Johns and things like that.
Yeah.
And that the more that spreads around, the better it is for us, because it gets more people coming in. Like, I gained 5 baseball players in the last 2 weeks.
Nice.
And, like, most of them are pitchers. And they're coming in just doing basic strength training. So the more that gets out there, the better. So you'll probably have to be a voice in your own wherever you end up being.
Good advice.
And like, I often end up dealing with, I have high school coaches that come in and things like that. So they're getting ready to have me come talk to one of the schools. I'm going in there as an advisor. So basically, I shot it to him. I was like, don't bring me in there and say, okay, he's going to tell us what to do. Because whoever's running that program now is probably be quite defensive about that. I said, bring me in there as let me see what you're doing and then give you ideas of how you can better that. Like what you're doing is great, but if we do this, it'll be even better type of thing. So we can pitch it kind of as I'm going to help him do even more than he's doing now. Not that your shit sucks. So,
yeah.
And I don't know, it might be oh God, we got to scrap it all, guys. I hope not. But, and then I'm going to speak at, from there, they want me to speak next year. They have a yearly meeting of all the high school coaches in this area, strength coaches or athletic coaches, and they want me to come speak at that. So it's those type of connections that can help you. And I don't know. I mean, I don't regret at all going private sector. I mean, I like it because I can make more money than I can at a university, and because I get both. And, part of it with the athletes, at least, is just, you need to get one and make them better, and then magically the word spreads, and then you start getting more. I have tons of college athletes that come here. Like right now, we're busy because they're all on break, so they're all back here, and they'll go away at the mid-January and go back to school, and then I get them all summer again. But then I get high school kids too, and I usually have them year-round. So it's just that word kind of spreads, and you'll end up getting those athletes just from word of mouth. I mean. So
yeah, Phil, would you say it's scalable then? Like, if you're going to do it yourself, you got to be willing to be poor for a while, and then it scales up. But then eventually, the ceiling would be higher than what you might make at a university or a clinic. Does that sound fair?
Yes. Yeah, you're not going to start off where you were. So I mean, and that's what I just gave somebody else some advice about how to start their own gym. And I think starting small Like one of the things I did is I started profitable off day one, because I didn't go buy $20,000 worth of stuff. You know, you can do a lot with a power rack and a bar and some plates, with very minimal investment, and then grow as needed. You know, we didn't even have a bench for a long time. I had everybody floor press.
Wow.
So even my powerlifters, we freaking floor pressed. So, and it worked. And then grow from there. You know, basically, I grew from one power rack and a platform and some weights to now I'm in my big place. I grew as needed. So connect with people, and you'll get people, and like I've helped people cure their type 2 diabetes and things like that. That helps too. Word spreads. And again, that's on the preventative side. You know, they did something to prevent themselves from going, or at least fix it, and then prevented themselves from having to take medication and things like that. And word spreads about that. Hey, look at this. I don't have to take this anymore. You should try it. So I get kind of both. We have a weird client base. You know, we're all across the board. So, and I think that's where you need to be private sector. Okay. It's hard to be just one thing unless you're I imagine if I was in a huge city, like if I was in New York City or something, there's frickin' 55 million athletes or something, you know, then I could deal with just athletes. But I mean, I turn all my regular people into athletes, so that's how I deal with that. It's like, hey, guess what? You're going to compete in something. Oh, okay. But I'm 65. That's okay. We can do it. You know?
That's right.
So, yeah.
I like what you said about being a voice. Like, by bringing in other people, like-minded people, maybe that's the niche. And again, Reagan, I'm assuming you're a girl. Maybe I shouldn't. But regardless of your gender, that could be your niche. You could be a voice, right? That, hey, prevention works. Like, exercise is a very potent preventative kind of thing. Dr. Nelson, what about your experience with this? Someone who's, again, ATC and strength coach passion wants to know where to go from here.
Yeah, with students I have like that, I always advise them if, whatever experience you can get being an intern maybe for a strength coach, a lot of times you're not going to get paid. You're going to have really crappy hours, but you'll know if you want to do that or not. And then you'll have some experience. You'll hopefully do a good job. You'll know someone there who can give you a referral because, as you guys know, a lot of the strength coaching is just like anything else. A lot of it's, who you know and that type of thing too. Obviously, you have to do a good job. But and even beyond that, getting some experience, maybe, working at a gym or something like that. And in the future, if she wants to do more private sector stuff, I always tell people that if you can, go work for someone who's running a private sector gym like Bill or somebody like that. And then you're going to get some money, probably not going to make a ton of money, but you're also going to learn, hopefully their system, someone who's going to educate you along the way. And then again, you get some money to try to figure out if this is what you want to do. Yeah. Because it's amazing how many students I have who come out and are like, well, I want to run my own gym. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. Do you like business? Like, business? No, I hate business. I'm like, well, right?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
And if you just want to work and coach for someone else, then that's great too. But I've just seen a lot of gyms fail with people who, like Phil was saying, buy too much equipment.
Yeah.
Don't want to treat it like a business. Assume they're going to put a name and people are just going to run in their door. And especially now, it just doesn't work that way. So, yeah. And I mean, like, I ended up working at a gym here for quite a while off and on. The last place I was at years ago filed bankruptcy, didn't tell me. I went there to train a client, and there's like a sign on the door. Hey, if you want the rest of your money, write to this address in Iowa. We went under. And I'm like, oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. So I called up Wendler at Elite FTS, and we talked about random stuff and death metal for 2 hours, and I bought a rack and a bar and a bench.
Hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, good stuff.
Yeah.
You know what? I think if I can explain my comments about where the money is, part of the reason I think for this reactive medical model is third-party reimbursement, right? Insurance companies will pay a physical therapist for certain conditions, like, oh, we're gonna pay for 6 or 8 sessions for rehab after some kind of ACL repair or a total knee replacement, whatever it is. then the strength coaches are actually being handed the baton after the PTs get kind of the big bucks from the insurance companies, right? Phil mentioned nutrition. Even in nutrition, we do not have the sort of blank checks written in clinical nutrition for all kinds of conditions. Renal disease and diabetes, kind of about it. So it's all about how much insurance companies are willing to pay for your services, and they just typically don't put their money where their mouth is, as far as annual salaries of $60,000, $70,000, $90,000 a year for prevention, for the people that are in prevention. I will say this. Before I started talking to Phil a lot, or an old friend of mine, he was a university strength coach, Ray Eady. He's up in Wisconsin now, but I was asking him about literally in writing, what's your job responsibility? Because I thought it would be something about either strength or conditioning or something regarding performance. And he said, number one, injury prevention. That's why I'm paid my salary. I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's an education for me. So it's not even performance first. It's literally injury prevention was what the university was paying him to do. So it's something to keep in mind. So
I could definitely see that at the college level. And I agree with Mike. I mean, that's one thing, like this conversation I was having yesterday with another individual, is like, nobody sees the 10 years I put in before I opened my own place.
Yeah.
I worked for, I won't say who, but I mean, there was a time where I worked for like $500 every 3 weeks and room to sleep in, you know, and it was like, but I did it because I love this. And, so basically I didn't have any bills, but I didn't make anything. But I mean, I got a lot of experience and learned on the private sector and things like that. And you finally take that step on your own, and you may have to work a second job at the beginning.
That's right.
You may have to do something else. But
okay. I think it's a common question. So you're not alone, Reagan. I think it's actually the most difficult life stage is not graduating high school, but it's what to do when you're done with, in your case, college, and then you're being asked, now what? So it's actually quite tough. But again, something that's a challenge can also be an opportunity. Maybe you can be that ambassador for prevention, and work in that direction. Yeah. Hook up with like-minded people. You just got to surf around the web, look at different departments, look at the faculty's interests, stuff like that. I mean,
well, I think we've mentioned PTs numerous times. I'm connected with a great PT, and I think that's good to do. Basically, we hit off of each other. Oh, I've got a person with an issue. I'll send them to you. Hey, I've got a person that no longer has any issues except they're weak. Okay, I'm going to send them to you.
Yep.
Type of thing. Networking is huge. Things like that.
Yeah, mutual respect, right? Because, I think sometimes we've discussed this, but strength coaches will drift into the PT scope of practice maybe a little too far with some of the functional movement screens or rehabbing people, soft tissue work, and there's a lot of different things that really are sort of other professions, and I'm not saying the strength coaches can't do any of it at all, but you got to keep it sort of at the screening entry kind of level, and then you have that respect to make that referral when you feel like you're out of your scope. And honestly, the PTs need to be doing that too, because PTs, maybe not as much as nurses, but sometimes I feel like those professions, their scope is broad enough. They try to be everything to everybody, and sometimes they need to say, Phil Stevens knows more than I do about this. Phil, help. Kind of thing. Anyway. All right. Okay, next one. This is a very different question. We'll just do this one before we go to break. This is from Dan. He wrote to Fortress. So Dan's an old-timer. He's been listening to us for a long time. He says, good day, Fortress. I've been a pretty long-time supporting member. I keep forgetting to ask for that testosterone booster seminar. And again, that's something that we give to supporting members that have been around for a while. We try to remember, people who continue to support Iron Radio and not just the new incoming people. Anyway, you guys have been there for me for years, and it is fitting as I am just finishing grad school and student teaching. I look into what the good doctors have to say on a subject. Let's see, I'll cut out some of this email, but the question here is, so my mom, an obese, heavy caffeine drinker, and asthmatic, who uses an inhaler way too often. Just got out of the hospital. She's 52 and has heart failure. That is, enlarged heart. She's on beta blockers for the rest of her life. Now, the question is about him. As a large mammal, 5'10", 240, 240 pounds, who drinks a lot of coffee and is on stimulants for ADHD, I'm worried about something like this happening to me. Obviously, I'm going to talk to my doctor about this, but she is not a lifter and still buys a lot into some of the old myths about lifting and caffeine or dietary cholesterol and things of that nature. What can you answer for me? And then he says, P.S. Fortress, get your ass back on the show. We need more metal talk. So, yeah, honestly, Fortress and you, Mike, are the people that I go to the most if I want heavy metal recommendations, death metal, anything. You guys are the ones I go to for that. Yeah, don't let Mike Nelson's mild-mannered professional appearance fool you. Big metal head. So you can ask questions to Dr. Nelson too. Yeah. Here's what I would suggest, Dan. One, you might want to consider actually, if you're such a large mammal. Now, if you're really lean already, that's one thing. I don't know your body comp, but you might want to think about cycling down to maybe 215 or something for half a year and just see how you feel. And I say that because you mentioned in this email that a lot of your numbers look healthy. I'm assuming you mean like blood pressure, blood lipids, things like that. I can tell you there's a member in my family who's not even 50 and hypertensive for a long time, high blood viscosity. And again, some of our listeners who are large mammals, if they use androgens, their hematocrit can get very high, for example. And I think that could worsen it, right? Your blood viscosity, your blood gets kind of thick. So I would monitor your blood pressure. I'd monitor your hematocrit and hemoglobin just in case. Now, if you don't use androgens of any kind, it's still a common genetic mutation, right? That you have too much hematocrit, hemoglobin, right? Too much red cell mass, and that leads to thicker blood, so your heart has to push harder, and it sort of hypertrophies in not a good way. So again, I'm just suggesting you consider these things, and I'm glad you're talking to your physician because we're not medical doctors. But heart issues are something that often comes up, honestly, with the large mammals. Not necessarily. I know a lot of people who are super healthy, but yeah, to be 50 years old and already, or even sub 50, and have problems with an enlarged heart, that to me suggests that your myocardium, your heart muscle's been under too much stress, right? Your heart is a fist-sized muscle, but it really is a muscle. It's different from skeletal muscle in a lot of ways, but at the same time, if it's under a lot of resistance all the time, it's going to grow, and eventually it's going to stretch out a little and that sort of thing, and cause some problems. And again, I can't really speak to the coffee and the ADHD meds. I mean, common ADHD meds are stimulants. I get that, right? Amphetamine, right? Adderall is, we used to call that amphetamine. So I can see some concern, and it might be worth checking with your doctor. And again, you got to be part of your own health care. So monitor your blood pressure, look at your hematocrit and hemoglobin. These are very simple tests just to make sure. And again, I would consider doing something like Phil does every once in a while. Every couple of years, he'll peel down the body weight a little bit just to see if he feels better. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, I agree. And I think times, like one of the bigger changes, I've done this always, but I mean, like once a year, I used to do kind of a reset for like 3 months and eat like extremely good, usually low carb, and do that for 3 months a year. And I mean, most of the time I'm trying to stay big as I can, but now one thing I've changed as I'm older, getting in my 40s, is I only eat up towards meats like the last 8 weeks. I tell my people, okay, it's time to eat like an asshole. And I eat up to meats instead of, the very usual now is people cutting down for meats. It's like they're bigger and they're trying to stay big all the time, and then they cut a few pounds off. I do the opposite. I'm running around 20 pounds light, and then those last 8 weeks, okay, let's see how much I can pack on and get into this meat. And so basically I'm only eating, let's say if I compete 2 times a year, I'm eating horrible 16 weeks out of the year. So the other 40 weeks I'm not.
Right. Yeah.
And the other thing I think that we all get that are into heavy lifting are guilty of is probably not enough cardiovascular exercise. Making sure you have some of that, and that doesn't have to be anything horrible. You go for walks, and things like that. Just get out there and move around. Get on your feet and move. is going to be a big help. And
okay,
yeah, I think fish oils. I mean, they're using those now in Europe and everything as almost prescribing them for heart disease. So I think that can't be understated, and that goes into your blood viscosity level too. I mean, it's going to thin your blood somewhat and things like that. So
yeah, I've read, and again, I can't reference this, but the data are out there that vitamin E and fish oils both. I'm almost certain they reduce red blood cell stickiness and things of that nature. And again, this is assuming that hematocrit's one of his things, that it's very high. He's focused more on the stimulants and that sort of thing. Now, Mike, I know you worked behind the scenes sort of in the medical device industry with cardiac type stuff. So what are your thoughts about this? ADHD, mom with enlarged heart, large mammal, etc.
Yeah, so I worked for 12 years in the medical device industry and cardiac pacemakers, defibrillators, that kind of stuff. I mean, a couple of things. It's probably worth getting at least a resting heart rate or possibly heart rate variability, which you can do with different apps and stuff now. His HRV is going to be skewed because of the ADHD meds. So one of the first questions, if I get, once in a while I'll get kind of random HRV sent to me, and I'll look at it, and if the HRV is really bad, I'll ask him, like, what medication are you on? And a lot of times, stimulants for ADHD, right, because some pathomimetics will just whack your HRV. So I haven't seen the long-term data on that, but my gut feeling is it's probably not good, right? I mean, if the cutoff I use, which again is just a rough cutoff, your resting heart rate seated first thing in the morning is even in the 60s, and you're a large mammal, that's making me think you probably want to do some lower intensity cardio for a while, which is boring as sin, 90 to maybe 130, 140 beats per minute.
Yeah.
Right? You can get into cardiac hypertrophy changes, which is eccentric versus concentric type stuff. And then also, like you guys mentioned, just going to your physician, getting some basic blood work, making sure you know where your numbers are at. And those people also, I've had them, or at least consider they should look at blood glucose. So you can do that yourself. Just take a fasting reading first thing in the morning, because it kind of irks me that when you go in and get blood work, which is definitely a good thing, but most guys probably only go in like once every couple of years, and you're like trying to make decisions based off of one fasting glucose number, which seems kind of crazy to me. And then last thing, that a little bit out of the box, two things. You want to make sure that he's sleeping good, that he doesn't have any sleep apnea.
Yes.
Because I've seen that in a lot of people, especially if your neck size starts getting above 17 inches, which in a lot of lifters is super common. And then the very last thing is that if he's got ADHD and he's trying to cycle off that through his physician, you may want to look at some functional neurology, because they look at function of the eyes and a bunch of other inputs, and possibly even like breathing mechanics and things of that nature, just to see if there's anything he can do on that side, if he's deciding that that's something he wants to tackle with a physician.
That's good advice. I'm going to be very vague, but not that long ago, Mike, that because of you, you turned me on to HRV, and we're trying to look at connections between excessive caffeine intake and HRV, thinking the number might go lower, right? There might be more sympathetic drive. One of the subjects had an HRV of 36. And I'm like, are you living on caffeine? Are you not sleeping? And as it turns out, despite acknowledging that she shouldn't be in the study, because our exclusion criteria is ADHD meds, right? Because we know how adrenaline-like, adrenergic they are, sympathomimetic, as you point out.
Yep.
And as it turns out, the subject actually was on Adderall. And God, 36. I mean, everybody else is like 80-something, 90-something, on this 100 scale. And so definitely has a role. And I like what Phil said about the high, doing a little bit of high-intensity interval work or some type of cardio, or like what you said, if you are strung out, maybe lower-intensity cardio. I can tell you one of the differences between myself and that family member that I have is that I actually came around and started doing some cardio. You can't be so paranoid that all cardio is going to keep you from getting big. You know, some level of cardio is not going to interfere with your muscle mass. In fact, Joey Antonio from the ISSN, he's been tweeting a little bit about that in the past month, that some cardio, a little bit of high-intensity interval stuff or some of the low-intensity may actually help gains. Like if you're cardiovascularly out of shape, it may actually help on some level. So I don't want people to think that they shouldn't do any of that. So once he has medical clearance to do something like that, don't neglect the sleep and the cardio. Okay. Well, that's all we can really suggest, right, buddy? Because we're not physicians, but you need to go talk to your doctor about that. Be part of your own treatment, that kind of thing. Okay. Let's go to break, and when we come back, we'll talk about that post-competition period.
Hey listeners, this is Dr. Lonnie Lowry. If you've ever had anyone critique you on your protein intake as part of your weightlifting lifestyle, oh, you poor meathead, all that extra protein is going to rot your kidneys or weaken your bones or dehydrate you or give you gout or who knows what. There is a book available. You could simply Google CRC Press and Lowry. And what I've done is reach out to experts all over the world and create a book, a single compendium that you can hold up and say, this is why I consume extra protein. This can be very valuable when you're being quote-unquote educated by various professionals on the topic. There's an enormous amount of literature in this book on the safety, the effectiveness, how protein works in cells, the history of protein and weight trainers, much more. So again, please check out CRC Press and Protein and Lowry. You can just Google that. And I do, full disclosure, I do make a small single-digit royalty on the book. But that's not why I did it. I did it so we can all have something, our particular population, to both defend what we do and to inform our nutrition and our eating. Thanks.
I can't stop feeling. Some of us don't understand how lucky we are to be living in this land.
Hi listeners, this is Rob Fortress Fortney. I'm here to remind you that as the holiday season approaches and your thoughts turn to giving, we like you to keep IronRadio in your thoughts.
Over the past several years, there have been hundreds of listener comments hoping that IronRadio stays on the air for years to come. IronRadio is here for you. But as with any public radio type format, the show is listener supported. That's where you come in. For just $4 a month, you become a supporting member, keeping your weekly dose of education, experts, and gym talk flowing. Just go to www.ironradio.org and click on the $4 monthly subscribe button near the bottom of the page.
Or click the donate button at the right of the page for a one-time donation. You are the Iron Brotherhood and Sisterhood.
Of course, not everyone can afford to be a supporting member or a significant one-time donor. But for those of you willing to pitch in, $4 per month or $50 just once, we're about to sweeten the deal. Become a supporting member or major donor between now and January, and a limited number of you will receive a gift worth over $20. And we will never forget our existing supporters. Simply email me via ironradio.org, and I'll send you a free seminar from Dr. Lowry on how to significantly and realistically boost your testosterone levels. Help your iron brothers and sisters who cannot pitch in but deserve better internet programming in our sports. And happy holidays.
Iron Radio is, of course, primarily a podcast. But over the years, there have been technical glitches calling for backup streaming and listeners who wanted the convenience of other sources of audio content. Toward this end, Iron Radio is now simulcast and backed up on YouTube. If needed, please search Lawnman07 or Iron Radio from within YouTube. There's not much video, but if you like to listen through YouTube on a Roku or other living room device, there you go.
Like your weekly fix of Iron Radio? In addition to being a popular institute on iTunes, we are also on email. Simply go to www.ironradio.org and sign up for the voluntary email. You'll get a once per week email, no more. That's little more than the show notes and a link to the audio. So go for it.
All right, folks, we're back. It's Phil, Lonnie, and Mike, and we're going to talk about the post-competition period. Part of the impetus for this was that Phil's been running around himself and with some of his team at meets, even multiple meets, and it does sort of bring up the question, what do you do when you're done? So, Phil, you're always sort of a proponent of, listen, if you're going to peak for something, by definition, that means there's a valley on either side. So we're going to talk about the valley on the post side. You've done your competition. Different people compete a different number of times each year. Phil, I know as you've gotten older, you peak less often, arguably. So first question is for each of you. These are sort of brief questions, but how long is this period? How long is this post-competition valley before you start to turn the volume meter back up and get more intense? Phil?
Depends.
Okay.
It depends. For some of my stronger athletes, it's longer. Like we did record breakers. What was it? Oh God, that was early November, and we're just now like we've been just kind of coasting since then. So we've been coasting for about a month. Most of those people, like I'm just going to start them going, including myself here in the next 2 weeks. But you're talking about people moving, a lot of pounds, and potentially they've been at it longer and have done a lot more damage to their bodies, and our training cycles tend to beat us up more. It's not saying I'm a big believer in that, like, your 100% is the same as my 100% as far as like what it does to you and how much it taxes like your central nervous system and things like that. But at a point, 800 is different than 400. So
yes, yep.
So we take a little more time off. I generally give them a little more time off to just, okay, let's just go have fun in the gym, because it's mentally taxing to get raised. Like, okay, I got to squat. I had one guy squatting 9 something, and it's like, man, take a break. Let's go have fun and do whatever you want. And then my other people, like these people last weekend, not saying that my wife squatted 300, she deadlifted 325, and benched, I don't know, 160 or something like that. We had a good group of ladies. Several of them pulled their first 300s. They kind of take a slow week, is what we're doing with them. And now we'll start pushing it back up again.
Okay.
Get them rolling. So generally, I like everybody to take almost a week off after a meet. We'll take a total week off, or just come in and move around light. Like they came in and moved around, and nothing over 50% was what I prescribed them. Just move. Get the bugs out of the system, get the achiness and the soreness off. But then we're going to start way back. We're going to start off at 60 to 70% of max is where we're going to begin, and they're not going to be upward towards anywhere near that what they just did for 3 months.
Yeah, a couple months. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, so it's going to be a slow ramp up. They're going to be in this valley, and they're going to slowly push up, and that also depends on when their next meet's going to be. So they might say that we might extend that valley a little bit, or if it's long enough out, let's say it's freaking 6 months out, we might have a different peak in between there.
Oh, yeah.
So my athletes, we might come up to a small, like a gym peak, and then, okay, let's start again. Generally, I run in 3-month cycles. So and the average athlete will peak out 4 times a year, be that in the gym or in the meet. And in the gym's a little less intense. We're just going to come up to a test. Sometimes that's a 3 rep, sometimes that's a 5 rep.
Okay.
And we can base progress off of that. You don't need to go to an all-out 1 rep max to see that you've gotten better.
Yeah.
If we can do a hard 5 that's better than the hard 5 you've ever done before, well, then we're better. So
that's something.
We'll take a break from the dieting. If they've been dieting, we'll stop dieting. If they've been losing, we'll stop losing for a little while. If they've been gaining, we'll stop gaining for a little while. So things like that. So
right. That's something that I actually learned from powerlifters. Coming from more of a bodybuilding interest background, is the idea is the way you'll take 1 step back so you could take 2 or 3 steps forward. Like you said, like starting. starting back at about 60%. You don't pick back up at 85, 90%, and just start, again, there's so much hyperbole in magazines about red line and blow yourself out and, mushroom cloud and, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That, it's really, I think it's gratifying in a way to take a step back, like you said, start at lower percentages so you can have the patience to eventually exceed your 100%, right? But you're taking that half a step back or a step back so you could take that 2 steps forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the weird thing with athletics, at least strength athletics, our off season is like the opposite of bodybuilding's off season. We're looking to put on that mass and things like that. We're looking to do the if you want to call it aesthetic work, that's fine because it leads to that by function. But we're doing our hypertrophy work way out from competition.
Yeah, bigger engine. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing. I mean, if you looked at pictures of even Ed Cohn back in the day, he looked better months out from being on the platform, aesthetically.
Right. Yeah.
And then you get closer to the platform. Okay, man, you go into a training session. I've had training sessions where it was like 8 reps. That was the training.
The whole session.
You're not gonna get any hypertrophy from 8 reps. Right. Not counting the warm ups. I mean, so we get all that in. If I have athletes that, okay, man, we need a bigger motor, this is the time to do it. We're working with more of that. So generally, they're muscularly sore. My lifters are more muscularly sore way out from meat. They're more joint sore near a meat.
Makes sense.
Is the 2 things I'm having to deal with. So we're trying to, I'm having to balance 2 different scales at different times of the year.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. But
all right, duration. Miguel, Dr. Nelson, what do you think? In that trough, that post-competition trough, and you could bring in the training stuff if you want as well. Like, what do you mean, by that trough, etc.?
Yeah. So what I normally look at is, like Phil was saying, I'll look at the mental side and then also the physical side. All right. So physical side, I'll normally use resting heart rate variability, and that'll give me a pretty good idea because we've got a baseline of when they started, going up to the meet, whether it's a power lifter or I do work with some physique athletes. Then after that, if it's a physique athlete, my goal is I don't let them even talk about another show until at minimum I see their heart rate variability stress come back to where it should be baseline again, right? Because obviously doing a stress, any type of competition is going to be very stressful. And I find with physique athletes that periods even longer, right? Because you're Lana, you're just, so depleted. Your calories are low. You're trying to keep your training as high as you can and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the mental side, just, you can look at like RPE of their lifting. A lot of it, I just go by just willingness to train. It's like, do you even feel like training? And a lot of times they're like, no. Like, just make Phil say, go to the gym, do some light stuff. A lot of times I'll have more people do powerlifting, do like maybe some even blood flow restriction or just hypertrophy. I call them like, hey, you get like 2 to 3 dude broad days this week. You've been wanting to do arms for a long time? Yeah, take 2 sessions, 45 minutes, do arms. Crazy.
Yeah,
that's fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just because I know it's not going to physically beat them up that much. Their HRV is not going to get worse. It usually gets better. Mentally, they're going to feel better, and they're moving, right? Because you don't want them to get in that rut of, oh, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm not going to walk. I'm not going to move. And I've had people do that too, and they just take forever to recover. Another thing I have noticed, maybe you guys noticed this too, more on the strength side, is if their aerobic base is more developed, they tend to bounce back a little quicker.
Oh, yeah.
Like I've had some people where literally like a week or 2, they were pretty good to start working on their next cycle. They're not going to start them out super high or anything. And I've had other people where, man, they were a wreck for like several months. So it's like, hey, you got this downtime. Maybe let's do some boring aerobic base work for a while to get that up. But then when we start adding and pushing more volume, you can handle it and you can, recover from it. The 2 steps back, 1 step forward type thing.
Okay. Makes sense. you're right. I think it's an important distinction with the physique type athletes, right? Is that, holy God, you're unlike what Phil was suggesting about just pigging out on everything in sight, the sort of seafood diet, if you follow me. The bodybuilder and the physique person, they've got all this volume, and they're underfed. They start ending up, and again, a lot of my memories were doing this in my 40s, where little nagging injuries. I don't mean something that would keep you out of the gym, but you got all these little pulls and strains and things like that. You're undernourished, and yet at the same time, after about a week or so, I think the last few times I competed, I actually just took about a week, and then I found myself just kind of putzing around in the gym after 5 or 6 days, just doing fun stuff. Trying to keep the intensity down. I'm not going nutso on the, pre-workouts or anything like that. Just trying to have fun, and enjoy eating again, and repairing. Yeah. Maybe some massage or soft tissue work might be called for in that period. If you're really beat up, your joints and your soft tissues and everything. But the refeed is also a big thing with the physique athletes. So people refeed in different rates, I suppose. I don't literally reverse mirror the diet, because I used to do like 20 to 24 week diets. There's no way I'm going to refeed that slowly back up. But about 6 weeks or something, a month or 6 weeks, I wouldn't just head straight, at least in theory, I wouldn't head straight for the Dairy Queen blizzards. Although once in a while, when you're trying to get yourself back together, I can see doing that. But yeah, you have to realize there's a lot of enzymes, and I'm not going to bore people with talk of lipoprotein, lipase, and all these storage enzymes, but they are very greedy to store fat, and you could end up doing so much physique damage as far as body fat gain and that sort of thing that you rue the day that you decided to have 3 blizzards every day, in your refeed. So a period of refeed is a good idea. I like what you said, Mike, about the HRV, and looking at your recovery, monitoring with some numbers, actually, your recovery.
If there's stimulants, trying to cycle them down, because a lot of stimulant use gets super high. Obviously, that'll crush HRV and stuff too, but that's a big stressor on the body, right? So I always try people to slowly kind of, come back down to a semi-sane level again too. Right on.
I mean, some melatonin to help you get to sleep at night, reestablish the sleep cycle, just the whole thing. Yeah, the nervous system, big time. Okay, because I'm looking out the window right now. I'm hearing the snow plows go by. It's here in Ohio. We're blanketed with some snow due to an Alberta clipper coming through here. But is there any difference in time of year? I mean, I know what we do is in the gym a lot. But during that trough period, Phil, would you do anything like if you just finished a meet in May, are you going to do anything in that after period differently during the summertime versus this time of year? Just curious.
No, I mean, the only thing in theory, no, in practice, maybe, would be outside less.
Right, yeah.
So the weather might inhibit what, instead of being outside pulling a sled, we may be inside swinging a kettlebell,
okay, yeah.
Stuff like that. But I mean, the end game, and we're getting the same thing done with different tools, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, so. I get it. I mean, in physique competitions, I used to actually target like a late April, May kind of thing. And it's fun to be in shape during the summer. So it would be fun for me during that period. Go to the pool and stuff, because you still feel like you look good, and you can get outside, or you could, play some soccer, a pickup game of basketball, or you could do stuff that again, looking out my window, I'm not going to be doing that right now.
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, I guess maybe adding a little more cardiovascular activity in the winter, because people don't get as much naturally.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But maybe just more moving. But I mean, and the good thing about the holiday season, everybody's eating. So I have a lot of people they're eating by default.
Right.
Going on. So
yeah.
Let's frickin' do some volume. Everybody's eating. So, and that's one thing I never understood one thing on the physique side that I never understood was how people ran that. It was like, okay, we're going to do this really heavy, low volume stuff while we're big. And then, okay, we're getting down to competition. I'm eating nothing but like kale and chicken breast, and I'm going to do insane volume when I have no fuel to actually use all that volume. It made no sense.
Burn the cuts in, bro. You got to do all the work.
Burn the cuts in, bro.
It's like you have no fuel to handle that volume, and you're doing all this insane volume. It's like, that would have been better done earlier in the season.
Yeah.
But no, weather doesn't change what I do much.
Right. No, I hear you. I'm thinking along the lines of other productive pursuits and things too. Because I think it's good to disengage your mind in a lot of ways, and what I might be doing this time of year is not what I would be doing in June.
Yeah, but honestly, that stuff out of the gym, I don't control it much. I can tell people what to do, but honestly, I don't care what my people do out of the gym. It's as far as their active life.
Yeah.
It's like, go do something. I want them to go out and be active. Go out and go hiking, do this or that, go shovel snow. I don't care. But what I control, I can give recommendations, but when they're not in my sight, I can't.
Oh, sure.
I've grown to know that it's out of my hands.
Yeah, it's so individual, right? What you might do to disengage, a hobby or whatever. But no, to your point though, yeah, I like hikes, that kind of stuff. Like, I'm not mowing the lawn twice a week this time of year, so it's a good point about everybody's in more of a naturally positive energy balance this time of year. If you live anywhere in the Midwest or north of that, so to speak, because you're just not doing a lot of that stuff unless you're shoveling snow or trying to thaw your frozen pipes.
People come in more often because they don't have other things to do. The summer comes around, they're all camping and fishing and hiking and it's like, wow, it's crickets in here. They're all out doing stuff. And then the winter comes around and they're always like, I'm going to be there 7 days a week. I'm like, oh, great.
Right.
So, that's probably the main difference I see. But
right on.
Other than that, the weather doesn't mess with me much at all. If they come in 7 days a week, it's like, go sit on that bicycle. I got nothing for you, bro.
Right.
So, you squatted after yesterday. We're not doing it again today.
Yeah.
So,
what about you, Mike? You live in an extreme, arguably, environment. When you're actually home and not in, Mexico or God knows where, Guatemala, doing your parasailing, windsurfing, whatever. But other pursuits.
Most of my clients are online, so a lot of it just depends on location. I've had people from New Zealand, Australia, so on the other side of the world, to like even way northern Canada. The thing I do find is that if you're in a colder environment, just getting outside is good, I think. Minnesota is lucky because it's cold, but at least it's relatively sunny in the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Just from the whole circadian rhythm, trying to get them some sunlight just on the eyeballs in the morning to kind of anchor their circadian rhythm. And then I do have probably 95% of my clients have a Fitbit or some type of watch, so I always record their step count because I want an idea of about, because I have the paradox of what Phil has. Most of my clients are off kind of on their own, quote unquote, all the time. Mm-hmm. So I kind of need a way to keep a little bit of a leash on them and be like, hey, your step count is like 2,000 steps. What the hell happened? So trying to keep that up, which I know even myself can be tricky. So I'll do what Jody, my wife, calls the reverse strip tease, where you put more clothes on before you go outside and then just leave them by the door. So if I get up in the morning, I just walk by the door, put all my clothes on, and I just go for a walk in the morning. So it takes more effort that I actually have to paradoxically kind of program in more walking and stuff in the winter. Just otherwise, I don't go outside nearly as much.
Yeah, unlike Minnesota, I can tell you, in Ohio, we have a lot of our winter, which is like 40 degrees and freezing rain, which is really bullshit to go outside and walk. Yeah, Kelly and I we'll try to create little like mutual deals. Like if it's not raining, let's just go walk around the neighborhood for half an hour before work. So to try to kind of force that issue a little bit,
Yeah.
So, I get it.
Minnesota will be 10 below, but it's sunny.
Right. I noticed that when I was up there, right? A lot of people from Ohio, they'd be like, oh, it's even worse up there. I'm like, no, it's actually sunnier. Like the Cleveland area is like the third cloudiest in the country, I think, behind like Seattle and I don't know, somewhere in Michigan. And and so it's pretty lousy here. And I can see, to Phil's point, like as a gym owner, it's like, oh God, I got a whole wave of people coming in here because there's nowhere else that they can move really this time of year. So they're lining up at the bike or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I even have a big gym membership at Lifetime here that's like a mile down the road, so I'll always walk there. But it's nice just to get outside, and they've got a pool and a basketball court and just other activities I can do without like I'm freezing all the time, just to get some just general movement in.
Right Okay, let me wrap up by offering some thank yous here. By the way, people who are supporting the show, I think you know this, but we have to pay for the web server. In fact, that time of year is now. I'm getting nagged by our server. We have to pay for certain things, but we also try to take a small amount of the money and support students and athletes. And I'm not going to go into gory details, but the money always goes to a good place, and it's very related to our community as lifters. So just so you know that. Phil and I were talking a little bit before I hit record. But thanks to the following people here. This is very random, so if I don't mention your name, I still see on a regular basis who supports the show, and it's very much appreciated. But Colin, Dan, Jacob, Corey, Nathan, Philip, and Christopher. You are the ones I noticed by name just very recently. Some new supporters in the Fall Funds Drive, so thank you. Some current supporters, and like I said, I'm trying to get some time here, end of the month, early January, where I'll send you some thank yous. I've got a few things on my little swag list. There's some coffee mugs, there's some earbuds. I thought that was thematic for a podcast. You can listen to us. Stuff like that. Sometimes it's online audio. I've got a couple special topic kind of things that I can, if you get a hold of me and you say, hey, I'm a supporter, long time or otherwise, here's my mailing address. I would like a mug, or I would like something like that. Or sometimes, like I said, it's just here's a link so you can go listen to a free seminar or something like that other people can't get. So we're trying to be respectful and grateful for the people who help us keep the lights on. So, okay, that'll be it for this week, and we'll see you next time, I guess.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Cool. See ya.
Hey listeners, have you seen the store at IronRadio.org? There are 3 halls in the store. One for Phil, one for Fortress, and one for myself, Dr. Lowry, and they're thematic. So you can go into our Halls of Iron store and choose based on your goal. If you need something to learn or read or something nutritional, you can look in my store, Lonnie's store. If you want something about injury prevention or competition, then take a look at Phil's Hall of Iron. And if you want something about motivation or daily training, Fortress's Hall has what you're looking for. There are some fun, heroic descriptors as you browse through the store, so we try to make it a little more fun than the average boring online store. And whether you're a novice lifter or someone more experienced, you can take heart that you're not wasting your time. The things that we put in each Hall of Iron are actually based on our own recommendations. Protein powders that we know to be good, knee sleeves, wraps of some kind, things that Fortress uses in his own training. The stuff you see, you know is good. This way you don't waste time. So check out the Iron Radio store at ironradio.org and let us know what you think on the forums, and certainly you can request products and we will screen them before they go in. So thanks for listening. Iron Radio is accepting donations. If you like what we do, the professors, the scientists, the bodybuilding show promoters, the athletes themselves in powerlifting and bodybuilding, please consider making a donation or maybe buying something from the ironradio.org store. We also are accepting supporting members. So for $4 a month, which is frankly less than the bank sneaks out of your account in fees, you can step up and support a form of sort of public radio for the bodybuilding and powerlifting and strength community. The Iron Radio podcast and all of the audio on ironradio.org is for informational purposes only. If you're interested in starting a diet or exercise program, it's important to check with your physician. Also seek the help of registered dietitians, athletic trainers, and qualified exercise physiologists in order to make the progress that you need.